Hello everyone, and welcome to another interesting game. Since all of you enjoyed my previous video so much, that Woody Harrelson versus Garry Kasparov game, we have another game where Kasparov faces off against a celebrity. This time it's talk show host, comedian, writer David Letterman. I'm sure all of you heard about him. And it's a game that wasn't played like they sat down and they played a game. It was actually played since October 20th until December 1st of 1989. So Kasparov, as far as I know, was a guest at David Letterman's late night show twice, once in February of 1989 and once in October of October 20th of 1989, and it was at at that time that they played the first move. So after the first move, Garry Kasparov left, they continued their show, and then they continued to play all the way till December the 1st of 1989 over the phone. Every episode, David Letterman would pick up a phone, he would call Garry Kasparov, and he would ask him, what do you play? He played a move, and every time David Letterman said something like, hello kids, guess what time it is now, and then he said it's time for chess, and then he played a move or two depending on how much time was attributed to chess in each episode. And I even prepared okay, let me just load it. I do have a photo of this, although it's not a very high resolution photo. Let me just check. Yeah, here I think I'll have to make it smaller because it's really of poor quality. There's the two of them, Garry Kasparov and David Letterman, in his TV show. But I did prepare even a short video footage because I was extremely surprised and impressed when I found out that there is actually a 1.5 hour footage of the entire show that Garry Kasparov spent on David Letterman's late night show. It's available on YouTube, and here, as the first move was e4, this is David Letterman's reaction to Kasparov's e4. So let's just check it out. So here is Letterman's reaction.
We have okay now.
Okay,
we're only going to make. You're going to make a move, then I'll make a move. Yeah.
And then
You go ahead and start. You go ahead and make the first move.
There's no advantage.
You I'm sure.
Damn! I'm screwed! Look at that! Oh, now what?
Okay, so that was his reaction on Kasparov's e4 move, and I will put a link to the entire video. It lasts about an hour and a half, so you can check it out if you have an hour and a half to spend. You know, what better time to spend it than to watch Garry Kasparov in a David Letterman show. So let's see it. E4, and first Letterman responded with A5. He said, okay, you made a pawn move, I'm gonna make a pawn move, but then he decided this, not really something you should go for, and then he decided to go for D5. So we have the Scandinavian on the board. We have E captures on D5, Queen captures on D5, and here Knight to C3 by Kasparov. Queen to E6 check, and here David Letterman makes a little joke. He says it's only move 3 and you are already in check. So Kasparov responds bishop to E2, and we have queen to G6. So moving the queen already for the third time, Letterman is now attacking Kasparov's pawn on G2. But Kasparov, of course, is not very impressed by this. Just a second. First, he played knight to c6. My mistake. It wasn't queen to g6 immediately. Knight to c6 first, and only after Kasparov played d4, then queen to g6 was played. Now attacking Kasparov's g2 pawn. And here Kasparov replied that Letterman moves his queen too much, even though Kasparov knows that the queen is Letterman's favorite piece. So here Kasparov played knight to f3, and we have queen captures on g2, already moving the queen for the fourth time this game, grabbing another pawn, and Kasparov says you will pay a very high price for moving your queen so many times and for grabbing those pawns. Rook to g1, queen to h3, the queen has to move. We have d5 now, forcing the knight to move, and here knight to a5. Knight to a5, and already this move was played on November 10th. So already 21 days have passed since the first move. So here David Letterman says to Kasparov that he can smell the aroma of victory. No, that he can smell victory, and Kasparov replies that he senses the same aroma over at his place. So knight to b5. Now Kasparov is threatening knight captures on c7 to fork the king and the rook, and we have queen to d7, defending the c7 pawn. Bishop to f4 now with a double attack, and if you're hearing thunder and maybe a little bit of wind, that's because there's currently like a huge storm raging here in my hometown, and as I've heard in the entire Croatia. Here knight to f6 was played. Knight to f6, but there really is no way to defend c7. You could play something like well, not e6 definitely, but you could go for instead of knight to f6, which was played, you could go for e5. But even then, knight captures, you attack the queen, and now after queen e7, you simply play knight to c6 check. Not check, but attacking the queen. And after knight is captured, now knight captures on c7. The king is in check, and after you move the king, now d captures on c6, opening up a discovered check from the queen. The king has nowhere to go. You have to block with the bishop, and then first the bishop falls, then the rook falls. It's gonna be a quick end for David Letterman. So instead, after moving e5, he responds with knight to f6. Kasparov proceeds, knight captures on c7, this is with check. We have king to d8, and now comes knight to e5. Kasparov says, I could grab your rook, but instead of grabbing your rook on a8, I want to grab your queen. So knight to e5, and he is in fact correct. There is really no good square for the queen. In the game, Letterman played a queen captures knight on c7. He saw the variation that was coming, but at least he knew that he would grab both of the knights. But it's no better to not capture the knight. If you play something like queen to a4, you know, move your queen away from any danger, then it's actually a forced checkmate. It's a checkmate in 4, a forced checkmate. So feel free to pause the video here and try to find the mate in 4. I will give it a couple of seconds as usual. So your Garry Kasparov beat David Letterman. To all of you who were successful, congratulations, you are an excellent checkmater in 4 this time. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, the idea is knight captures on f7. We have king to d7, that's the only square available for the king, as this is covered by the other knight. So after king to d7, the idea is bishop to g4 check. And now it doesn't matter, either you capture with the knight or e6, all of this leads to checkmate. If knight captures, then queen captures, e6, and queen captures on e6, this will be checkmate. And if you don't capture the bishop, if you play e6, then comes bishop captures, the king has nowhere to go except on e7, and after this you can either checkmate by pushing the pawn to d6, or bishop to d6, whichever you prefer. I prefer bishop to d6 because this will look much nicer on my thumbnail. And also I don't think this formation was ever created in a game played by a world champion. So in the game, after knight to e5, attacking the queen, Letterman did capture the knight. Queen captures on c7. Knight captures on f7 with check. We have king to e8, and now comes the bishop captures on c7. So Kasparov did in fact grab the queen, and Letterman grabbed both of Kasparov's knights, or as he says in the game, both of Kasparov's horses. We have bishop captures on a5, bishop to f5, and queen to d4 now. Bishop captures on c4, rook to c1, attacking the bishop, and here there was actually a really long conversation before this rook to c1 move, but you can check the entire conversation in the link I will post below. There will be a link that will lead you to the entire conversation that was put together from the newspapers articles, but you can also watch the YouTube video that lasts like an hour and a half, so you will not see the entire conversation about this game because the game lasted a really long time, but one user put it together and he uploaded the article on chess.com, so I will put the link in the description below, so you can enjoy that as well. Rook to c1, we have bishop to e4, and then now comes rook to c7. Rook to d8, and here Kasparov pushes d6. So you can't really capture it because simply queen captures, the pawn is pinned, this pawn cannot move because of the rook on c7. Here Letterman played b6, he attacked the bishop on a5, bishop to c3, and here bishop to d5. Oh yeah, that's some loud thunder. Queen to e5 by Kasparov, and here I mean, there really are no good moves for black. Letterman played bishop to e6, and here again, I urge you to pause the video and find a beautiful checkmate in 3. I really recommend you do so, as you will feel very good about yourself. I will get a couple of seconds as usual. So for those of you who found the idea, congratulations, you are an excellent checkmater in 3. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, here Kasparov played queen captures on f6. What do you do here? Well, there are a couple of ideas you can try out. You can go king to g8. King to g8, queen captures on e6 will be checkmate on the spot. You can also go king here, but then you get rook captures on e7. There's no move the king can make. Bishop has to capture, and now queen captures on e7. This will also be checkmate. But in the game, Letterman tried a different idea. Of course, you cannot capture with the e-pawn. The e-pawn is still pinned from the rook. Letterman tried g captures on f6, and now I'm sure all of you can see it. It's bishop to h5, and this is now checkmate. Because the rook is covering the entire g file, the bishop is slicing all the way here, so the king has nowhere to go. So yeah, that's the game. That's Kasparov versus David Letterman. I do hope you enjoyed it. Another video in the series, Kasparov versus celebrities. There are a couple of other videos. I know that Kasparov did play a game against Arnold Schwarzenegger, but there's no way to find the moves of that game. There are photos of the two of them playing, but it's impossible to find the moves. But you know, the internet is a big place. If any of you have the moves to this game, feel free to share, and we'll show that game as well. And for those of you who are interested in still dropping your vote on my next series, also the link to that will be in the description below, so feel free to check it out and the vote for the next series. So yeah, once again, I do hope you enjoyed it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon. We'll see, perhaps with another suggestion, or maybe with another Kasparov versus a celebrity game. Thank you all.